Joining me, Rowan Hooper, author of Superhuman, Life for the Extremes of Mental and Physical Ability. Tell me, why Superhuman? What motivated you to write about people when, is it so often we're hearing that problems with humanity, our failings, our foibles, our downfalls?
Yeah, it is a bit of that. I was motivated to write it because first of all, I'd been writing too much about animals doing great things, and I suddenly realised that actually humans can do much better than any animal. And I wanted to put that right in my head. And then I wanted to write something positive about all the amazing, great things that humans are capable of. So it's a celebration. And it was an examination of our potential. Where are we on that potential spectrum? You know, are we at the end of it, or is there much more to come? So it was a way of exploring those questions.
Now, something people often talk about, every human is magical, a kind of a miracle in their own way. We're all superhuman. You chose not to look at it that way, rather than to look for those individuals who are really at the extremes. Help me understand why.
It was simply because I wanted to go to people who are the best in the world at various traits, and I've picked various different things from intelligence to singing ability to bravery to happiness. So I cast the net wide, but in order to really find out why and what makes those people tick, I just wanted to find out, pick the best in the world at those different things. So find the people who've got to be the best, or who've lived the longest if it's longevity, or have done incredibly brave things, or who are the top singers in the world, or the most intelligent, and so on. And just go to those people and hear their story, find out what they think, where they think their talent comes from, but then crucially go to scientists and geneticists and so on, and find out what this thinking is about how talent and expertise develops in these top-class people.
Before we go on to talk about what it is within those people and how their superhumanity is composed, how did you go about choosing what those traits were? How did you decide what is it that I'm going to focus on? Because there obviously are so many talents and abilities we can have.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be just about kind of traditional athletics type superhuman abilities. So there are a couple of physical traits in there, like running ability, and resilience is something that's probably mostly physical. I actually wanted to look at a whole range of things that we're the best at. And really it was other things that perhaps other animals can do to some rubbish extent, but that we can do just so much better. So really it was just like, let's make a big list of all the things that we're best at and explore them all. Simple as that, really.
Give me some examples of the type of humans, superhumans, that you came across in your research.
Okay, so I've met a woman who, in the chapter on resilience, went through some extraordinary trauma and yet bounced back and became kind of more powerful than ever before. And literally, like, I met her surgeon who saved her life and rebuilt her entire body, basically, and then gave her a face transplant. And she found within herself a strength and a sense of purpose that surely you think that's a superhuman ability. And most people, first of all, most people have died from her injuries, but she didn't. She not only didn't die, she responded in this incredible way, and that was a very moving and powerful person to meet. So that was someone who I felt that is a superhuman trait, what she got through and how she responded to being tested in the most appalling way. That's one example. Then there's someone who can speak more than 50 languages. A very different kind of ability, but madly impressive. Then there's Nobel Prize winner. There's Hilary Mantel, one of our greatest writers. Double Booker Prize winner. So I sat down with these people and tried to explore where they think their ability comes from. How did they get to, as they see it, get to be at the top of the game? But yeah, there's a whole range of different people I've met.
But this fascinates all of us, because we all like to think within us there's some special ability and some special talent. Are we talking about the fact all of us have something special there to be discovered, or are you convinced by your research some people just are better than others, or most of us, at certain things?
I'm afraid so. Basically, it's the genetics studies, and they're getting bigger and bigger, show that there is a big genetic component to many different traits. So, for example, singing. I met a couple of world-class opera singers, and I asked them, "Where does your ability come from?" And they both said, "Oh, it's from practice. I've just practiced so much. You know, I've put my whole life into this. It's all practice. I'll say 10% maybe genetic." That's their feeling about it. If you look at what geneticists have found when they've looked at singing, there's a large proportion that is actually genetic from twin studies. And what's even more, what surprised me even more, was that they found the amount of practice that you're willing to put into something is itself genetic. So we all know people who have a certain get up and go, and they have a drive, right? They go and do something, and do it and again and again and again. And maybe innately we would think those people have got something. Mm-hmm. And it turns out they do. They do have some genetic components to that. We don't know what genes there are. It's very complex, but we know that there's a decent genetic chunk behind that propensity to put in the hard work.
In all cases of the superhumans you met, was there that genetic background, or did they themselves seem to think it was something within them, a drive, or how they were raised? For example, I think in the chapter on Hilary Mantel, she puts a lot of her ability down to the environment in which she grew up, amongst people obsessed with words, conversation, writing, and language.
Although she also thinks that there's an innate ability that she has, because her aunts have it, her mother has this way with words. They're not writers, but they have a way with words.
Right.
That's there. So she grew up with this chatter and going on all the time, but she does feel that it's innate. There's a big genetic component, and it turns out there is. But what was the first thing you said?
Well,
the common thread.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's something.
Yeah, the common thread is more of a sense of positivity and a can-do attitude, or not just necessarily can-do attitude, but a not be knocked down attitude. So people just carry on. It doesn't matter if you fail. These people, you just keep going, and it's that sort of drive and commitment. They all seem to have a curiosity about the world, an enjoyment of the things they do. They found what they're good at and what they love doing. And that's a huge thing. It's not like they're forcing themselves to do something they don't love. So there was actually a surprising commonality between what initially looked very disparate traits and abilities.
I mean, I was thinking about your distance, your extreme distance runner, for example. Surely he must have some genetic super ability to process glucose or absorb more oxygen that helps him run. Is that what was found?
Well, they have put him through lots of tests in the labs. And they found he's got a slightly better ability to balance the point at which lactate builds up in the muscles and new glucose comes in. So he can effectively run forever. Effectively, because he can run at this exact sweet spot, and really the only thing that stops him running is he gets mentally tired, he falls asleep, and sometimes he literally falls asleep whilst running. If he's been running for 12 hours, he's tired, and he nods off whilst running, and then we'll sort of wake up and I feel actually a little bit refreshed. I had a micro nap whilst running. So, we don't know what the genes are for that, but we do know that there is probably, for all complex traits like athletic ability, for intelligence, there's about a 50% genetic component that explains the variance of the people who get to the top of the world in those things.
I'm just wondering, you touched on some very interesting concepts in this book. I mean, I think particularly the balance of nature versus nurture, and I think it's obvious that there is a strong genetic component to a lot of these traits. You mentioned the singing, but also some of the physical abilities and things like that. You're straying there into quite difficult territory from a societal point of view. Could you have written? I don't think you could have written this book in the middle of the 20th century and it gone down particularly well. I mean, this is something that the Nazis and the eugenicists were obsessed with. This idea of, ultimate humans.
Yeah.
Do you think we're at a point now where we can start to reappraise our abilities as humans, and the fact that some of us are, some people are better than others?
Well, I mean, the science is showing us this. It would be crazy to try and deny that it's there.
Yeah.
Although some people do, actually, particularly in the US. A lot of the study of expertise is strongly divided into sort of the environment camp, in other words, the ones who think it's mostly nurture. But then the people on the nature side of it, the geneticists, they fully admit that nothing works alone. You need nature and nurture. But they say, look, the results we're finding is that there is a strong genetic component to many different traits, from sort of chess ability to singing ability.
But do you think it's complex? I'm thinking in education, for example, we don't do IQ testing routinely in education. We don't stream children according to some scientific measure of intelligence or aptitude for learning.
No.
Yet the genetics is telling us that that is there. There is a component of that there.
Yes.
Do you think we need to take a more superhuman approach to how we teach our kids and organise our societies? Possibly.
I mean, it is straying outside of what I explore in the book.
Yeah.
But I think there is an example in there. I think it was in Los Angeles, in a district there, a poor district. And as a trial, they did start giving IQ tests across the board. And they were able to raise the educational outcome of many children in very poor and deprived areas by being able to target them and give them more resources than they otherwise would have got. So it was a very positive outcome in raising up people who otherwise live in a deprived area and don't get any of the opportunities. So it is super controversial and very, very touchy. People are doing it, are thinking about it, and obviously it has to be approached very, very carefully. But there's a lot of evidence that shows that there's a lot of good that can come out of it as well.
And in terms of the people that you met, you had to obviously decide traits that humans have in terms of super abilities. Were there some, though, who seemed to have multiple traits that were above average or better than the rest of us? You know, the super intelligent, super fit, brave, musically talented types. I mean, I'm trying to understand, just to make myself feel better as a fairly ordinary person, how much diversity within humans is there in terms of ability?
There's a big diversity. It's true that people who are very, very good at one thing often are very good at other things as well. We all probably know people who are, sickeningly good at tennis and singing, and they can play the trumpet, and they're a writer or something, and they're an athlete. So, but what we find is with IQ, especially people at the higher end of IQ, have greater outcomes on a lot of other scores, including longevity and health outcomes. Maybe weirdly, but they do. So yeah, some people are lucky enough to be good at everything.
And how was that for you as researching it? I mean, was it a depressing experience meeting all these wonderful people, or actually a positive one?
Yeah,
I wonder if it would actually just make me feel extremely miserable.
Right. Well, people did ask me that, but overwhelmingly not. Yeah. I found it absolutely inspiring to meet these people, and I cannot sing at all, right? Yeah. But meeting these singers, it was properly inspiring. It's not like I'm going to start singing, but just seeing what they do in their lives, and all the other people, the things they do, like Ellen MacArthur, right? What she did to sail around the world on her own, breaking the world record. What she did was incredible, and she did it because she had a goal, and she went for it, and she just went for it, and she loved it and went for it over and over again. And meeting people like that was properly inspiring. So it was not in any way, it wasn't depressing. It was like, wow, these people are amazing. I don't care that I'm not going to sail around the world or learn 50 languages. I can do something a little bit better than I'm doing at the moment, and that's enough. So it was great to meet these people.
And of all the ones you met, was there anyone that stood out? Maybe not as the best all-rounder, but the one who made the greatest impression on you as a truly incredible person.
Yeah, well, there's many people. They were all great. Let's just pick one. The chapter at the end is on happiness, and I thought, how am I going to find the happiest person in the world? And it was a head scratcher, that one. And eventually, I met someone who has locked-in syndrome. She's been locked in for 20 years. She has to eat through a tube. I got to know her because she can work and email. She has a computer set up so she can sort of type out emails, and we got chatting like that, and then I went to meet her in person. And what's extraordinary is, you know, she's kind of completely, well, she's locked in. She's in a wheelchair, she can't move. So I had to sort of move into her line of sight to let her know I'm here. And then, you know, she communicates on her computer. And you'd think initially that is a pretty awful life.
Yeah, a desperate situation.
But actually she has an extraordinarily rich life. She's taken 2 degrees from the Open University. She says she's happier now than before she became locked in. And she's not a one-off. I started looking into a lot more people, and psychologists have started doing this now, asking people who are locked in, well, you know, what's your quality of life like? And overwhelmingly, they're actually quite happy. And they find some other way of getting on in life. And actually it makes them happy. Mm-hmm. And that was an extraordinary and completely counterintuitive thing to find, that when we look at people who are locked in, it's incredibly unfortunate. You think, oh my God, you know, poor them and all that, and it is awful, but many of them find some resilience and find a form of happiness. Some of them, they say, more so than before they became locked in. So those people, and those people in particular that I met, were very inspiring and extraordinary people. Yeah.
Rowan Hooper, thanks very much for talking to us.
Thanks for having me.